to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ebro in the Morning, Laura Stiles and Rosenberg. Today we are joined by host of the hit podcast Wrongful Conviction, also former executive and just all-around great guy, Jason Flom is on the program. We're talking Innocence Project today. Good morning, Jason. What's happening, sir?
Good morning.
Oh, man, I'm so happy to be here. I miss you, by the way. I haven't seen you in forever. This COVID thing made all these relationships just splinter
Crazy.
apart. We're back together now, and man, we're moving forward, and we're going to make a difference.
Yo, I actually went to an event the other night when we went to Ari Melber's MSNBC thing to celebrate 5 years of his show, The Beat. And I haven't been out at an event like that in years.
Yeah.
I forgot what people look like. People were walking up to me that I've known for a long time. I was like, I know you.
Right.
But it's been years. It's literally been years since I've seen you. So anyway, great to see you, Jason Flom. First, let's talk about the Innocence Project. Maybe people have heard of it. Maybe they have not. But what does it do?
Well, the Innocence Project is a separate issue. I'm not here representing them today, but I am very proud of my affiliation with this incredible organization, the Innocence Project, of which I am the founding board member. Not the founder. The founders are Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld. Everybody should know that for sure. But the Innocence Project uses DNA to prove innocence in cases where people have been convicted of heinous crimes, sentenced to life in prison, death sentences. And it's an incredible organization because not only have we exonerated hundreds of people who were factually innocent and proven with real science to be innocent, but also the Innocence Project works to change laws and practices so that these terrible cases of wrongful conviction don't happen with such alarming regularity in the future. Because if you don't think it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody, and it does.
Right.
And that's why I started the podcast.
So Wrongful Convictions, the podcast, look it up. How much of wrongful convictions, in your experience, to what percentage is it literally based on racism and poverty?
No, that's a great question. And the fact is, it's based, it's a strong factor in these wrongful conviction cases. We know that Black people make up 13% of the American population, but around 50% of proven wrongful convictions have been people of color. So, that should really freak everybody out. It gives me the chills just thinking about it. So race and poverty, I'm glad you brought that up, because they always say, like, one thing everybody on death row has in common is they're poor. You got white people, you got Latino people, you have Asian people, obviously you have Black people on death row. All of them were poor, and all of them were represented by people who didn't represent them. I'm going to be kind and say they didn't represent them very well, but in many cases they were represented by people who were totally incompetent.
Wow.
And the Supreme Court just ruled that that's fine, and it doesn't matter. So in a terrible case, terrible ruling, Jones versus Arizona, where they said that the fact that his attorney was incompetent at trial and his appellate attorney was incompetent doesn't matter. Arizona can go ahead and execute this innocent guy, Barry Jones. So it's like, this is the world we live in today.
And then, here recently I've seen news stories of judges on the take incarcerating, 9, 10, 11-year-olds. There's the Pennsylvania state thing where 2 judges were taking kickbacks from private prisons. How much do you see that corruption in our judicial system across the nation?
Well, prosecutorial and the police and prosecutorial misconduct have been a key factor in about 54% of wrongful conviction cases. So, that, again, will give you an indication of just how the system is almost built to fail, right? Judges, over 80% of judges are former prosecutors, right? So, that is listen, there are a lot of great judges out there, and there are a lot of good prosecutors out there too. I'm not casting the wide net, but there's too many that are subject to reverse incentives or just trying to climb the ladder. And it's almost like a scorecard where they just say, get somebody, they have a saying, a body for a body, right? You got somebody murdered, somebody looks good for it, good enough. And we just take them in, and then the system just churns from there. And it's like, once you get in that trap, it's like quicksand and getting, so which is why, by the way, I'm focused on district attorney races. And we just won a great victory in Memphis where we defeated the horrible incumbent named Amy Wyrick, put in a guy who was elected named Steve Mulroy, who's the first Democratic DA in the history of Memphis, a 57% Black community where they finally have somebody who's actually looking out for their best interest and
Wow.
looking out for public safety, looking out for real public safety, not for some crazy right-wing fantasy of this quote unquote tough on crime, which is really just tough on people and does not enhance public safety. So now 2 big races coming up, Oklahoma City and Minneapolis, Hennepin County, where I think we have a chance to elect very, very good DAs. And hopefully, I think this is how we have to stop this problem at the top of the funnel as opposed to working on these individual cases.
And I just want to go on record, and we're going to get into the rest of this convo. When you hear numbers like 54%, 50%, if you were giving that a grade out of 100%, that would be a failing grade. Just so we're all clear. The system, people say it's working exactly how they want it to work, meaning it's locking up the poor, the black, the brown. It's working how it was intended to. But it also, for anyone else that thinks that like, oh, we have a great justice system, justice is not being served when you have a failing grade. Like, I just wanted to establish that.
Of course.
Jason, you brought someone with you today who we want to bring into the conversation. Let's bring him in, and can you tell us a little bit about his story?
Yeah, so this is a very unusual case. This is a guy named Sheron Edwards, who I've been working on his case for several years now. This is not an innocence case. Don't get me wrong. This is a guy who readily admits that he committed a crime. He did something very, very stupid when he was a student at Mississippi State University. He got in an argument with his girlfriend, and she took off and went to her parents' house about an hour away. She took their car, and he had no way to get there. He wanted to go apologize, try to make things right, whatever it was. And he saw a guy standing there, a white guy. He didn't know the white guy was the son of a judge. Bad idea there, right? Made a bad idea worse. But he stole this guy's keys, and it was, and took his car. And it was not a good crime. Don't get me wrong. This was wrong what he did, and he'll tell you, he'll be the first one to tell you that. But what's crazy is not only the fact that the cop who arrested him was suspended for 5 days for wearing his KKK robes to a meeting at the city council, but also,
oh my God,
but also Sheron was sentenced to 20 years in federal and 20 years in state for the exact same crime.
Of stealing a car.
I mean, even the judge said carjack. It sounds like keyjacking. You know what I mean? The judge, I don't know if he was trying to be funny or what, but there's nothing funny about it. But the fact is, he got 2 20-year sentences consecutive for the same crime. How is that possible? Well, you're about to find out, because Sheron will be telling you. And guy who served 20 years in federal, he's been in Parchment Prison, which we know is one of the most notorious, terrible, dangerous, disgusting prisons in America or the world. And his experience it's really shocking.
Sheron, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Sheron, how are you? Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm great. Yes, as Jason was saying, I was excessively sentenced to 2 sentences, both state and federal, for the same exact crime, which is very unfair, And I caught my case, and you want me to give you a narrative. I don't know exactly what you got with that, but I caught the case in 1999. I was a 23-year-old student going to college at Mississippi State University. I was engaged to be married. I went out to watch the Lennox and Holyfield fight that night. But the thing that messed that whole entire night up was I ended up breaking my sobriety. And in the process, my girlfriend, my ex-fiance, she was very upset about it. And so she chose to take our only vehicle and go to her parents' house, which was an hour, plus away from where we were. So I ended up committing this, what he considered what the judge called a keyjacking. Well, the crazy thing is, as Jason was saying, I was sentenced in federal court, then in state court. But the main person behind the prosecution is the KKK member, who was a detective at the time. He was the lead detective on my case, had been suspended the year before for only 5 days for wearing a KKK robe inside the city hall, which is bizarre. So to add more insult to what he was doing, when I bunded out on the state charges, he was there at my school board collegiate hearing, and he promised the school board then, he told, they afforded me an opportunity to ask him questions, and I did. When I asked him a question, he was like, listen, I don't intend to answer any questions from this individual. The only thing I intend to do is see to it that this individual spends the rest of his life in the penitentiary. Sure enough, 2 days later, he referred my case to a federal magistrate judge I was prosecuted in federal court, given 20 years at trial. A year later, I was taken back on original state charges and given an additional 20 years. And this time was ran consecutively, meaning, stacked. So I ended up with 40 years. I served 18 years in federal prison. Now I'm currently in state prison.
And where is this? Where does this sit now? Is anybody reviewing this other than us having the conversation and what Jason Flom and the Innocence Project are trying to do on your behalf? What other steps need to be taken? Is this up to the judge that assigned this to you? Tell us what support you need today.
Well, what we need today is we need my family has a change .org petition online. The petition is requesting that the judge reconsiders an early parole, because last year they passed a parole bill and they were supposed to let people out. Well, instead of letting people out, the numbers have been declining as far as people being released. So our goal, or my objective, and along with Jason, is to bring some publicity. And then we kind of like force the hand of the judges to go ahead and do what they're supposed to do.
And has anybody at the federal level, the Department of Justice, which I'm told under the current Biden administration and Merrick Garland is leaning in on some of these cases nationally, has this got on their radar?
It hasn't. That's the thing. We need media exposure. And I know that's the thing that's going to get them there, but it definitely hasn't received any national publicity.
How?
So on the state level, because I discharged the federal child.
And how about you, Sheron, mentally? You sound good. You sound clear. This is obviously a travesty. How have you managed to sort of stay together through this long a time away from your family?
Man, it's been difficult. But so, like all people, when you come in the system, I'm 46 today, but I was 23 years old then. So I was mad at the world because I made a mistake, but I didn't think, and I still don't believe that I deserve that much time. So I went through my trial and error phase where I was getting in trouble, kind of, getting transferred, different prisons all throughout the federal system. But I got tired of it, man, and I wanted to fight back and kind of give everything a try, like the positive side of life, which I was never a negative person. I just made a wrong decision. And so today I'm a spiritual person. I'm spiritually grounded, no particular religion. I do my daily affirmations, food for thought, meditate daily, and just stay focused that way. I keep in touch with my family. And just, I maintain like that. Every time I get a chance to, I help others. Whether GED, I taught Spanish ESL in the feds. I taught regular GED in the feds. I've taken all types of courses, personal training. I'm also a published author right now also. My book is on Amazon. So I just try to stay active. I stay busy and encourage people.
The amount of racism that's clearly shrouded around your sentencing, right, from KKK members, and I mean, listen, let's be honest, the state of Mississippi in general is notorious, right? Like we can't even.
Right.
So the only path, in my estimation, I don't know, Jason, if you want to chime in here, is to get this on the federal level, to find someone who can really challenge the state system at this point, right, Jason?
Well, I was working with the federal government to try to help influence the then governor of Mississippi, the last governor, to grant clemency to Sheron, because that is really the best solution at this point, because he's serving the state sentence now. He already served the federal sentence.
Right.
So you're right, but actually the state is where he's incarcerated and who he's incarcerated by now. So the governor has the power to grant him clemency, but this governor has already said he's not going to give clemency to anyone. And the last one, now the latest news that just came out, instead of granting clemency to Sheron and other deserving people, which is a governor's responsibility, he decided not to do any of that, and instead he was busy, funneling $5 million to Brett Favre through the.
I was going to say, it's too bad you don't know Brett Favre. This could have been solved already.
Good idea. You guys got a contact?
Apparently, all he has to do is ask, and it gets done.
You can't make this stuff up, man. It's too crazy. And meanwhile, Sheron, who I've gotten to know well and I have a lot of respect for him. He's just listen, Sheron is a guy who cares a lot. He's turning me on to cases of innocent people. He's not, makes no bones about it. He's not innocent. And to be clear, it's not an Innocence Project case. This is me as an individual working to help him. But he's a guy who spends as much time talking to me about other people that I should be helping, other innocent people that he knows about. That's the type of guy he is. He's looking out for his brothers who are wrongfully convicted. And I've gotten involved in some of those cases, thanks to him, Quincy Cross and others. And so, it takes a village, right?
Sheron, did you physically harm the person who you took the keys from?
I was going to ask that same thing.
No, there was no serious bodily injury. Of course, I did, because the victim attempted to try to fight or whatever, I did hit him with the gun, but it discharged. I don't know if you're familiar with pistols, but they're discharged, especially a cheap pistol. But as far as like injuries, shooting him, grazing him, anything like that, I didn't do anything like that.
But they did add the assault to this as well as the stealing of the keys.
Correct. They included that inside. The assault was included in. They took him to the scene actually, so it kind of excludes the assault because they took him to the scene. But yeah, they took him to the. Excuse me 1 second. But yeah, we were there and he was hit, and once he was hit, I saw that he was injured. I ran because I was more frightful than he was. Once again, I don't do that type of stuff. I was just trying to get back to my head.
And Jason, do you have any comparable cases of people who were charged with similar things and what kind of time they did? White people particularly?
I don't know of a comparable case to this one, but I do know that we are out of step with the entire rest of the Western world in terms of these crazy sentences that we hand out. They're like football numbers, right? Like uniform numbers, right? 97 years, life plus 20, life. It's like we give out these sentences like people's lives don't matter at all, right? Because in most of the Western world, in Europe, the maximum sentence in a lot of these countries for anything is 15 years. Now, people may disagree with that, whatever, but how much time is correct? Like, is it correct for Sheron to spend, really, if he's there for 40 years, we might as well just give him a life or death sentence. I mean, it's like, what even is that? If you guys aren't even 40 years old, most of the audience listening, they're not even anywhere close to that age. So it's an incomprehensible amount of time. But they hand it out, like I said, like it's nothing, like these lies are just disposable, dispensable, and these people don't matter.
Well, in a racist nation like ours, in a racist state like Mississippi, black lives are expendable, 1,000%, and have always been since the founding of this thing. And that's when it keeps playing in my mind. You guys talking about the KKK robe of the sheriff and the prosecutor, whomever it was that was on this case, and making sure that this black person remained in jail.
Correct.
There's no interest in having you live out your years outside of a cage, Sheron. So yeah, it's gonna take some work. Everybody go, and now is it change.org and then Sheron Edwards?
Right, it's change.org, free Sheron Edwards.
Free Sheron
Edwards.
That's CHERONN?
SHER.
Oh, SHER.
SHERON. Yep.
Okay, Sheron Edwards. Perfect.
Guys, I just want to say one more thing, which is that, I believe what the great Brian Stevenson says is true. He says, quote, "I believe everyone is better than the worst thing they've ever done."
Yep.
And I think if we can all wrap ourselves around that, what Sheron did is wrong. I feel empathy for the victim. Nobody should suffer what happened to that guy, But the fact is, and I work, primarily on innocence cases or even a lot of nonviolent drug cases. This one is different from me. But Sheron is clearly a person who is reformed, who I would welcome into my home, who is somebody that belongs in free society, who has a lot to contribute. He's an intellectual guy. He's a spiritual guy. He's an author. He's got a book called Life's Lenses that I recommend people check out. So enough is enough. It's time to bring him home. He's made restitution and amends for what he did, and he belongs out here with us. And hopefully next time we get a chance to talk to him, he'll be in the studio, and we'll all be together.
From your mouth to God's ear.
Sheron, it was a pleasure meeting you, sir. Hold your head high, man.
It was a pleasure to meet you as well. And I'd like to thank you and your staff and Jason, also Daryl, Carlos, and please see my friend Jason Flom at It's Jason Flom on IG also. Great.
Jason, thank you,
Sheron.
man. Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, guys.
Follow me and get involved. It's Jason Flom on Instagram, and I just posted something. Actually, I'd love for everybody to see about bail. It's super important that you check out my most recent post, even if you don't follow me.
I'm gonna look right now.
And we got to work together to fix this system. So let's do it. Let's make it fairer and better for everyone.
All right, y'all. Let's keep working. Thank you very much, Sheron.
Thanks,
Stay
guys.
well,
Thank
man.
you.